28 years after he was first arrested for a murder he has always maintained he did not commit, more than 21 of which he spent behind bars, Sean Ellis could soon have his slate wiped clean after Suffolk County District Attorney Rachael Rollins took steps today to drop his final remaining convictions. For those who don't know his case, which was chronicled in the Netflix docuseries Trial 4, investigators said Boston Police Detective John Mulligan was on detail and sleeping in his car in front of a Walgreens in Roslindale when he was shot 5 times in the face and killed following a robbery back in '93. Ellis, then 19 years old, was quickly arrested and tried for Mulligan's murder. The first 2 trials ended in hung juries, although one jury did convict Ellis of weapons possession. Then at a 3rd trial, he was convicted of murder and first-degree robbery, sentenced to life without parole. But later, 2 Boston police detectives pivotal to the case against Ellis, Walter Robinson and Kenneth Acero, pled guilty to corruption charges, and a 3rd corrupt cop got immunity in exchange for testifying against the others, casting doubt on witness testimony and physical evidence they'd found. In 2015, his murder conviction was overturned. Ellis was released on bail, and a 4th trial was ordered. But then 3 years after that, prosecutors dropped the murder and robbery charges, but the weapons conviction still stands. So Ellis is still a convicted felon. In December, his attorneys filed for a new trial on that charge, and today Suffolk DA Rachael Rollins responded, asking a judge to approve the new trial and signaling she would then drop the charges if they do. In it, she called police and prosecutorial actions surrounding the case, quote, disgraceful chapters in our history, adding, this level of misconduct and indifference by the prosecution team, both BPD and the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, cannot be condoned, ignored, or tolerated. We must learn from our mistakes. DA Rollins joins me now. District Attorney, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
From the first time you considered this matter, did you pretty much know where you wanted to end up?
No, I knew that I was really just shocked by the level of corruption, but I knew that I was only hearing one side of the story. And, but now having gone through the long, hard process of looking at everything, it is really just a shameful chapter in our history as law enforcement.
What was the process? In a situation like this, do you consult with people outside your office? What transpired?
So normally, Jim, and other DAs have to get the credit for this. I inherited an office that has a group of individuals, many of whom that have handled homicides before, many of whom that are appellate specialists, and they would be a sort of conviction integrity internal group that vets the cases. The problem is, Jim, is many DA's offices believe, I don't need conviction integrity, I have appeals. They're very different things, number one. Number two, I don't only want lawyers in this group of people making decisions. I don't only want a homogenous group of people telling me, uphold this conviction, uphold this conviction, uphold this conviction at all costs. I assembled a group of experts in our office, and we met and meticulously went over the documents, of which there were thousands and thousands and thousands of pages. So we had, over dozens of boxes of our own files from the 3 trials and all the appeals. We had the internal affairs and anti-corruption files of all of these officers, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office files. And then occasionally, I can choose, if I want to speak to people I trust generally about, their thoughts on matters. And I've done that in the past.
Did you talk to Mulligan's family in this process or no? Before today?
I did. Yes, I personally did. And my office, of course, has been in touch with them many, many times. They are the victims in this case, right? However, whatever the Supreme Judicial Court or even the trial court said about Officer Mulligan, whatever his internal affairs or anti-corruption files say about complaints that have come during his 20 years of service with the Boston Police Department, he is a victim of homicide. So my office has a close contact with the Mulligan family, and I have personally spoken with them.
Were they okay with this decision by you?
No, they are very upset. They are upset I've only spoken to them since being the district attorney once as a result of Sean's attorney filing this motion and us making a decision to respond, which we were legally obligated to. I don't know whether they were spoken to or what their position was when the murder and the armed robbery were overturned and then null prossed. But I know that they were unhappy that I was looking at all of the corruption and the prosecutorial misconduct, and they are very upset about the result.
So if Judge Ullman agrees with you and the defense, not only will the charges be dropped, but there's a decent shot that Ellis will file a wrongful conviction case. I'm guessing, based on your pleading, you agree he was wrongfully convicted. Should he be entitled to compensation for 22 years of his life being taken away as a result of the work of a bunch of corrupt cops?
And prosecutors. So I will say
and prosecutors.
That is not my role to comment on that. What I can tell you is, with respect to the matter before me, I wanted to be truthful. I did not want to willfully look away and avoid very hard conversations about making sure that the mistakes we made were rectified, and making sure that there were positions and policies in place where we can never have another situation like this at the Boston Police Department or in the Suffolk County DA's office. I leave it to Sean's very capable lawyer to see whether she's going to file a 1983 claim and be successful.
But you're not just a district attorney. You're a citizen of the Commonwealth. You don't have an opinion on whether taking 22 years out of someone's life is worthy of compensation?
Well, I certainly know that there have been people that this attorney has represented she's been successful. She's an excellent lawyer. Okay. Listen, this level of corruption, I have never seen this level of corruption. So, but that is not my place to say. What I can tell you, Jim, is I was ashamed when I read this, there was virtually no integrity in this process. And I believe this pleading that I filed is hopefully going to start bringing integrity back, certainly with respect to this case.
So a couple of years ago, when the murder case, the interim DA decided not to try the murder case, Willie Gross, then the police commissioner, had this to say about the decision.
Sean Ellis is culpable. What does the evidence look like after 25 years? The witnesses and the strength. And the decision was based upon that, not innocence at all.
And today, in an echo of what Commissioner Gross said, Superintendent Chief Long issued a statement for the Boston Police. I'll read in part. 3 detectives not only disgraced themselves, but unfortunately their conduct was used to tarnish the reputation of the entire department. The Boston Police Department does not and will not tolerate corruption. But then he goes on to say, recognizing the issues that surround this case, the Boston Police Department belief remains the same. There was sufficient credible evidence to support a conviction for illegal firearm possession. What's your reaction to what Superintendent Chief Long had to say?
Well, I think that is, I'm actually impressed with that statement by Superintendent Long. Acting Commissioner Long. And I want you to know that I had a long conversation with him prior to filing this, because I think that's appropriate to tell him what I was concerned with and what I planned on doing. And he did, unlike others that have not acknowledged fully. There needs to be a full acknowledgement and a full stop of the corruption that was not only done by these 3, but condoned, right? And widely known and widespread, and it was cancerous throughout this entire time. Yeah, and there was no oversight.
District Attorney, he's condoning it. While you praise the first half of what he said, he goes on to say, essentially, by my reading, despite that corruption, which you obviously highlight, despite that corruption, guilty as charged. I remember your race when you were running for office, when a police leadership, and it's not just here, can almost never agree that there's such a thing as a wrongful conviction. Why can an average person believe that their job, their goal is to seek truth rather than to seek yet another conviction?
Do you want to run for district attorney, Jim? Like, I agree.
No, I don't want to run for anything.
What I will say, though, is
you.
I do. Yeah. But hear me, though. What I do think is we have to give credit where it's due. Commissioner Long did take enough time to say that it was disgraceful behavior.
He did.
This is the status quo, Jim. This is what our system always does, is we like to say Dukin and Farrak were terrible, yes. But these convictions that they touched, we're going to stand behind them. Had we in the beginning done what we should have done and said anything these women touched needs to be dismissed and we need to put in places audit functions so it never happens again, we would have saved the Commonwealth tens of millions of dollars and in thousands and thousands of hours of work. But what we do is we always look for a way to try to condone. What I like to say right now is the NCAA has it right sometimes. When you are taking money from a booster, Jim, and I am an all-American athlete doing great things, and we both win a national championship on our basketball team, it's taken away when there's corruption. That's what's happening here, is I am not going to put my name on anything that condones this type of behavior.
By the way, those two women were the drug lab women in that scandal. His lawyer thanked you today and said, and I'm paraphrasing from Adrian Walker's column in the Globe, there are other Sean Ellises sitting in jail, particularly citing those 3 corrupt cops. On a related theme, here was what Sean Ellis had to say when he was with me in November of last year.
There's a problem in this country, and when I think about what is going on with black and brown people within this criminal justice system, it isn't about Sean Ellis. It's about those who are continuously being victimized by the criminal justice system.
You know, District Attorney, I know you agree with what Sean Ellis said, but I want to go back to what his lawyer said. Why shouldn't every single case that was handled by these 3 corrupt cops or even the corrupt prosecutors in the office before you, why shouldn't every one of them be re-examined to see if there are or were other Sean Ellises? Are you doing that?
We are absolutely going to be reaching out to the Anthony Benedetti at CPCS and the head of MACDL, the Mass Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, to discuss a streamlined process of the cases. And there are 3 indicted or charged officers, detectives that were in this case. And there are others that have some taint on them as well as a result of these. And we will absolutely be working with the criminal defense bar to look into those.
Have you ever met Sean Ellis, Rachael Rollins?
I have seen Sean Ellis once in person, yes.
Do you have any desire to talk to him?
I have, you know, after Judge Ullman makes this decision, I would be very open to speaking with him, as I have been open to speaking with Arnie King and James Watson and Pedro Valentin and, you know, hopefully Sharon Ray when he comes home, and other people that we have. Mr. Foxworth, I've sat down and met with and had a restorative justice circle with him. So I went to a nonprofit once and walked in for a tour with my sister, and the person there saying hello, greeting, was Sean Ellis. And that is the one time I've met him physically in person. We have also seen each other at speaking events and other things like that.
Well, I'll invite you both on when this case is resolved. By the way, he said to the Associated Press today, he finally feels free. Those were Sean's words. We only have a minute left. Adrian Walker in his column today said in what was an unusual move, you personally signed the pleadings. Assuming it is unusual, why did you sign them yourself?
Because if there's any retribution, and there will be, I made this decision and I stand by it. I would never want somebody in my office, a younger lawyer, or even somebody who had not run for office, and had the title of district attorney, when you make hard decisions, you stand by them and you don't let other people do them for you. You put your shoulders back, you get your hand out and you sign that, and then you stand firm behind your decision. And that's what I did.
Who do you expect retribution from?
There will be people that are very upset about this, as displayed, I think, even by the statement by the acting commissioner. They are firmly entrenched in the belief that with all of this taint and corruption and lies and misconduct, that they can still whittle that away and try to believe that there is enough for a conviction. And, you know, I believe that there will be pushback and there will be fallout. I do.
Rachael Rollins, I really appreciate your generous giving of time. Thanks so much. Talk to you again soon.
You bet. Thank you, Jim.